The boy once moved like a blade. Now he moves like a loose thread. Deadlines stack. Praise thins. Purpose flickers. He keeps training, but the training has no center. Hands are busy, spirit is elsewhere. Noise rushes in where silence should be. On a rain-dark morning, he walks to a worn dojo at the edge of the city. Tatami smells of straw and old storms. An old swordsman pours tea, says nothing, lets the quiet do the teaching. When the boy finally speaks, about fatigue, fear, the soft gravity of screens, the old man nods. You have left your hara, the mentor says. Without center, discipline becomes posture. Without presence, the warrior serves the ego. Return to your hara and your path will hold. The boy bows, breath lowers, he feels the weight gather below the navel, the ancient system the body never forgot. A single rule is given. Hold the line. Not the line of glory, the line of attention, the line that keeps the sword sheathed until it must sing. This is a parable of returning, from drift to direction, from noise to silence, from self to spirit, a study in strength that does not shout, a map back to mastery when purpose fades. You are not broken, the old man says. You are scattered. The city wakes like a boiler, steam, sirens, screens. In that clamor the boy moves, shoulders high, breath thin. Attention grazing from task to task like a hungry animal that never feeds. He checks progress the way some check locks, again and again. Messages, metrics, mirrors. Each confirmation wins him nothing he can keep. I watch him arrive at the dojo door, with rain on his jacket and noise in his eyes. He bows from the neck, polite, hollow. The bow should begin below the navel. It does not. This is why he is tired. Tatami receives him with the smell of straw and storms. Wood beams hold the memory of winter and summer and all the hours between. He steps inside and the street falls away like a shed skin. I pour tea without speaking. Steam lifts, one long clean breath. I let him hear it. He tells me about deadlines stacking like slabs of wet stone, about praise that used to ignite his chest, now passing through him like weather, about the soft gravity of screens, the scroll that promises nectar and delivers dust. He says the word discipline, but it sounds like a punishment he gives himself, not a friendship he keeps. You have left your hara, I say, placing 2 fingers just below his navel. When attention rises only to the eyes and forehead, the ego becomes a foreman with a whip. When attention drops into the belly, the spirit becomes a steward with a lantern. He frowns, half curious, half defended. What if purpose is gone? Purpose is not gone, I answer. It is waiting where you stopped listening. We sit. Mokuso, eyes soft, spine a mast set in quiet earth. I guide him into the ancient system, disguised as simplicity. Inhale through the nose, 4 counts, into the hara. Let the belly receive like a bow that cannot spill. Exhale through the mouth, 6 counts, as if fogging winter glass. Tongue rests on the roof of the mouth like a small boat finding harbor. Shoulders fall without being told. This is not superstition, it is engineering. The diaphragm descends, the vagus nerve, your long river of calm, takes instruction. Heart rate variability begins to widen like a gate at dusk. Cortisol steps back from the threshold. The body remembers what the mind forgot. Safety lives low. Name the noise, I say. He listens. He hears the inward sirens. Hurry, impress, don't be seen slowing down. He exhales. The sirens dim, not by force, but by distance. The exhale lengthens the distance. Now place your hands on your thighs, I say. Feel the weight of your palms. They are not ornaments, they are anchors. We rise. I place his feet hip-width, the toes straight, as if standing in wet sand that records the truth. Knees soft, hips heavy, crown lifted by an invisible thread. I press 2 fingers again on the Hara. This is the center that old swordsmen carried into storms. Think of it as a small sun beneath the skin, not light for show, heat for living. He tries to hold the shape and his face tightens. I touch his cheek. No, discipline lives in the belly, not the jaw. He laughs once, embarrassed. The laugh is a crack where honesty can enter. I used to feel like a blade, he says. Now I feel like a loose thread. Then we will reweave, I tell him, not with more tasks, with fewer leaks. I draw a chalk line across the floor and he looks at me as if I have brought him a toy. This, I say, is the line you will learn to hold. Not the line of glory, the line of attention. He lifts a foot, sets it down, wobbling on some worry I cannot see. This is how it begins. Not with conquest, but with the humility of heel to tui. At the wall, a single blade sleeps in its sheath. I let him see it, and then let him see me turn away. Steel belongs to silence, I say. We will earn the silence first. He nods. The nod reaches his belly this time. Night comes like a black cloth, pulled gently over the city. I leave the lights low so his pupils widen to the room as it is, not as he wishes it to be. The chalk line waits on the tatami, one whisper of white laid across straw. He stands before it, as if before a river he has crossed badly many times. Feel your feet, I say, 10 toes, 10 small messengers. Let them report. He closes his eyes, wobbling, then steadies. The weight migrates from heels to midfoot, then settles like a stone at the base of a stream. Shoulders soften the way snow softens a roof. The breath lowers, not by command, but by invitation. Walk. Heel to toe. Slow as incense smoke. Faster than thought. At the 3rd step, distraction arrives, wearing a familiar mask. The day's unfinished tasks, knocking like guests who refuse to leave. Answer the email. Fix the slide. Check the feed. He tilts toward them, and the body tilts with the mind. The bucket spills, and he stumbles, though no bucket is there. Return, I say, not by cursing the noise, by hearing it and letting it pass, like carts on the road while you drink your tea. He exhales a 6-count stream, and the carts fall behind the hill of breath. He steps again. This time, he notices the little accomplices of drift, the micro-tension under the jaw, the tiny clutch in the throat, the forehead's habit of frowning before there is any threat to frown at. Call them by their true names. I tell him. Fear, image, hurry. He does. Naming transfigures them from masters to weather. We pause, halfway. I place a small wooden bowl in his hands, full of water to the rim. Hold this at the chest, I say. Walk your line. He laughs, then grows solemn. The 1st step sends a skin of water trembling. The 2nd step calms it. The 3rd step, a thought about winning spice the surface again. He sees the correlation. Thought rises, water shakes. Thought descends, water steadies. This is science as much as spirit, I say softly. Attention anchored low increases vagal tone. Vagal tone steadies heart and hands. A steady heart carries a steady bowl. A steady bowl carries a steady life. He breathes and the water grows glassy. On the 5th step, a memory shouts from the rafters. The day a teacher praised his speed, the year he learned to measure worth in alarms and applause. The bowl tilts. 2 drops leap the rim, silver in the dim. He inhales sharply, ready to scold himself. No, I cut in. Correction, not condemnation. Condemnation is the ego's theater. Correction is the warrior's craft. He bows his head a fraction, apology accepted by the only judge that matters, the Hara. He reaches the end of the line and turns without flair. On the return, something subtle appears, a soundless yes in the belly. Not victory, permission. The body permits him to inhabit it again. The rope of attention, frayed by years, begins to twist back upon itself into cord. I have him stop before the final step. This is the threshold, I say. We do not storm thresholds, we cross them with consent. He lets the exhale finish, then he places the last heel. The water does not move. We sit again. The room smells of straw, wet wool, and the mineral ghost of chalk. I give him a journal with thick paper and a spine that will not quit. On the first page I write 3 lines. What I feared, where I drifted, where I held the line. You will answer these each night, I say, no more than 1 sentence under each. Concision builds sincerity, sincerity builds strength. He nods, and the nod is not decorative. He asks if we will draw the sword soon. I shake my head. Steel before center breeds swagger, center before steel breeds spirit. You must learn to keep the blades sheathed inside your breath. At the door he bows. Ships and heart bowing with the head. Rain has stopped. The city hisses with wetness and new neon. He looks lighter, not because he carries less, but because he carries it correctly. Hold the line, I say. He answers quietly. I will. In the morning, there will be tea before steel. Morning makes a quieter kind of rain, the kind that soaks wood until it smells like memory. I open the dojo windows a hand's width and let the world breathe with us. No music, no speeches, only water and wind, and the soft mechanics of a kettle preparing its one small storm. Today, I say, we practice a kata you will perform more than any cut, boiling water. He smiles, uncertain if I jest. I do not. I set the implements with soldier's care, iron kettle, clay pot, chawan warmed by breath, leaves resting like a small forest at dusk. Every placement is a decision made once so that attention can be saved for what matters. This is discipline as architecture, habits forming a house around the spirit so the spirit can work. Watch, I say, then do. I pour heat into the chawan and empty it slowly. Steam scrolls across the air in cursive no one can forge. The room's pulse slows to match the pour. Inhale to the hara, 4 counts, exact and kind. Exhale, 6 counts, longer, lower, a tide withdrawing without haste. This, I say, is tanden breathing. We are building a keel, not a sail. Keels do not impress. Keels do not impress. They save ships. He mirrors the breath. The skin over his ribs stops flinching. The corners of his eyes stop scanning. Beneath the navel, a quiet weight gathers, not heavy like duty, heavy like belonging. I lift the pot and hold before pouring. Pause, I say, is a blade sharper than speed. He nods, not theatrical, felt. Leaves meet water. I set the timer, not for control, but for covenant. In this house, we keep promises, even the tongue cannot hear. When the timer breathes its single note, I decant. No flourish. The stream is thin and honest. We sit with the 2 bowls between us like lanterns. He reaches. Stop, I say gently. Notice the shape of your reach. Does it come from the chest fast forward hungry, or does it begin at the hara, down, then out, then up, like a rooted tree offering fruit? He resets, down, out, up. The difference is blueprint deep. A body moved by the belly honors the thing it touches. A body led by the chest tries to take. He sips. Heat plants a flag behind his sternum. The jaw unlocks. He exhales, and the bowl does not tremble in his hand. Intensity without center, I say, is fire in dry grass. It spreads bright, burns quick, and leaves you asking the wind for meaning. He looks at the kettle like it is a teacher. It is. I let science speak in the language of earth. When breath lowers, the baroreceptors in your arteries read the pressure, like farmers reading rain. They inform the brainstem writes to the vagus nerve, and the vagus writes calm into the heart. Interoception, the feeling of your insights sharpen. You stop outsourcing certainty to screens. He nods, eyes steady, not glazed. The boy who measured days by alerts begins to taste a minute unmeasured. Write this in your journal tonight, I say. One line under each heading, but add a fourth for this week only. What was the flavor of the moment? Train your tongue to notice what your mind rushes past. This is both Zen and neuroscience. Attention thickens experience. Thick experience starves distraction. He turns the bowl in his hands as if reading its edge for scripture. The tea is not special, we are. Name the system we practice, I continue. Not to collect words, but to carry them. He waits. 3 pillars. Misagi, rituals that rinse timidity from spirit. Keiko, practice done for practice without theater. Makoto, sincerity, the supreme steel. His mouth forms the words silently, apprenticing his tongue to their weight. He sets the bowl down with care, that would not embarrass a shrine. Outside, a bus sighs, inside, breath answers. I point to the kettle, refill with the same hands after the praise fades. Repetition is how the path forgives. He bows from the Hara, and the bow bows him. We do not touch the sword. In the hour after tea, I make the room smaller. Complexity breeds excuse. Limits breed presence. I clear a space the size of a door and place a single bowl within it. This where, I say, is your life when the world crowds you. Mastery is not vast, it is exact. He kneels. I hand him the bowl empty now, warm as a hand that refuses to let him lie. Stand, bow from the Hara, lift, pour, replace. Do it as if the bowl could feel what you are. He moves chest first, then remembers. Down, out, up, the ball returns to the mat without a click. Good, I say, now fail well. He looks at me, unsure. Rush, I command. He does, and the ball kisses the mat with a clatter. He flinches, eyes searching me for judgment. Here is your lesson, I say softly. Noise is a speed. Sincerity is a weight. When you rush, you become light in the wrong places. I let the body teach the mind, Makoto. Sincerity does not need applause, it needs gravity. He repeats the sequence until his exhale writes a long line through the act, until time acquires thickness, until motion is quiet. We step to the sink. Wash this single bowl, I tell him, as if it were a blade that remembers your grandfather. Water runs, he finds the line, the pressure that cleans without scouring away the bow's story. A film of steam fogs the window, and the city blurs into something merciful. Stoicism calls it the dichotomy of control, I say. What is yours? The pressure of your hand, the rhythm of your breath, the placing of your attention? What is not yours? The city's weather, another man's mood, the ear's appetite for spectacle. He nods, neck no longer stiff with the wish to command tides. Science will agree, I add. Habits are letters you carve into the basal ganglia, Carve the right letters and the hand writes the sentence even when the mind is tired. Reward prediction error. Your dopamine's way of asking, was this better or worse than expected? Can be trained to prefer quiet precision over frantic novelty. Drink from the same bowl at the same hour. Teach your nervous system that calm is home. We sit again. I set a timer for 3 minutes. Write, I say. He writes under the headings I gave him, 1 line each, no theater. The words are not pretty, they are true. What I feared, being unseen if I slow down, where I drifted, scrawling before breath. Where I held the line, returned to belly during the meeting. He waits for commentary, I give him none. Praise is a sugar that makes the tongue lazy. We let the ink cool. I hand him a small card and a rubber band. Put this around your phone, I say. On the card, Hara first. Every time you reach, bow inside before you touch the glass. He slides the band on with a half smile that reaches the belly. He feels silly, he feels helped. Both are useful. 2 last directives, I say. First, Keiko. Practice daily without witnesses. The tea, the breath, the bowl. Second, Misogi. Each dawn a small cleansing that costs you comfort. Cold water on the face, a minute barefoot on stone. This tells the animal you are captain. He breathes, the bread lands like a promise. The kettle refilled murmurs without needing to shout. We do not draw the sword, he does not ask. The wanting has changed shape, from hunger to invitation. As he rises to go, I tap the point below his navel once more, not as a correction, but as a blessing. When the day shakes you, I say, do not look up. Descend, the keel first, then the sail. He bows from the Hara, and the bow bows the day. Dawn is the color of iron. The dojo floor holds the night's cool like a secret. I draw the chalk again. 1 pale artery across straw. A line is not a wall. It is a promise. Today, I say, you will learn to walk where your life keeps failing. In the ordinary. He stands at the near edge, feet parallel, hips heavy, crown lifted as if a quiet hand holds him from the sky. I place a shallow wooden bowl, half full, into his palms. This is not water, I tell him. This is your attention. Spill it, and you will call yourself names. Hold it, and you will meet yourself. He laughs, then remembers to breathe low. The sound leaves no dent in the air. Walk. You touches down, toes spread, midfoot receives. On the 3rd step an old habit pounces. The mind tries to finish the line before the body begins it. The bowl trembles. 1 clear bead lifts like a thought trying to become a speech, then settles when his exhale lengthens. Good, I say. Let the breath be a slope the mind climbs down. He reaches the midway mark where most men betray themselves. Outcomes start to whisper, pride licks its teeth. Fear rehearses failure, eager to say see. He stumbles, not from weakness, but from speed. Name it, I say. Hurry, he answers. He slows without sagging. This is an art. Slowness can be sloth, or it can be sovereignty. He chooses sovereignty. Knees soft, pelvis heavy, spine a mast, head a lantern. No longer searching the horizon for ships that are not his. Watch the small thieves, I say. Jowl, tongue, brow. He unclenches the jaw. The ball steadies. He lets the tongue rest lightly on the palate. The ball grows mirror flat. His forehead smooths. The room's edges come into humane focus. Science is not an enemy here. It is a friend who brings maps. Your vestibular system, I say, is the sailor that tells the sea where you are. When your eyes chase future or past, the sailor panics and rocks the ship. When your gaze is soft and local, the sailor hums. The cerebellum writes balance into your bones. A bus grumbles outside. A raven scolds the morning. Inside, the boy's breath writes long lines through the noise. He doesn't fight the sounds. He gives them pasture beyond the fence. At the far end, he stops one step shy. I do not let him turn quickly. Thresholds must be crossed without begging from the future, I say. Finish this exhale. Let the nervous system close one door before the hand touches the next. He completes the step. Not a ripple, we repeat. The chalk whitens under desire and patience. On the fourth pass, he begins to meet the deeper animal, the fear of silence itself. The ego hates quiet the way a moth hates daylight. There is nowhere to hide. I see it in the twitch under his left eye, the ghost fist in the belly. Speak to it, I say, not as a judge, as a steward. He breathes and whispers, "You may walk with me, but you do not lead." The fist loosens. Presence thickens until the whole room feels like the inside of a bell that has just been struck and is remembering how to be air. I give him the next weight, a sandbag, light but insistent, placed across the back of his shoulders. This is your life, I say. Emails, bills, expectations. Walk as if strength were not gritting but alignment. He steps, and the bag settles into the architecture of his posture. The line does not own him, he owns the line. Remember the old sentences, I murmur: control effort, release weather, hold the hara. At the end of the sixth pass he is breathing like a man who has found a river under his house. I take the bowl back. Now walk empty-handed, I say. If you have learned, the water will still be carried. He does, and he does. I darken the room one shade by sliding the shoji. When vision lowers, the other senses lift their heads. Now we test without witnesses, I say. The ego performs for eyes, spirit performs for O's. He stands at the line as if at a border crossing. I take away the chalk with a damp cloth, leaving only the memory of white. Your life will do this, I say. Remove the marks, erase the rails, you will keep walking or you will beg for rulers. He inhales to the hara, steps. Without the line, he must draw one inside. The first two strides are faithful. The third leans toward outcome, and the torso sways. He corrects, not with violence, but with gravity. Ships heavy, brow smooth, exhale long. The body remembers the keel. Name the posture, I whisper. Aligned, he says. What is it made of? Weight low, spine tall, breath slow, gaze soft. Good. Now add interruption. I clap once, sharp as a dropped plate. A reflex jolts through him, old circuitry that traded childhood startle for adult sarcasm. He wobbles, then catches the floor with his feet, the way a sentence catches meaning with its final word. Again, I say. I clap at odd intervals, sometimes near, sometimes behind. We are teaching his amygdala that alarms may ring, but the captain keeps his hand on the wheel. With each clap, the recovery shortens, the refractory period where emotion once drove. This is neuroplasticity dressed as walking, I tell him. You are timing your own return. I place a metronome on the floor, its black arm ticking like a small, respectful heart. Match your steps to this, I say, then lead it. He synchronizes. Then, without speeding, he allows his breath to become the deeper conductor. The tick obeys the body's quiet, an inversion the modern world rarely permits. We finish the sequence and I take him outside to the alley, where a delivery truck exhales diesel and a neighbor argues with a door that won't open. The dojo is everywhere, I say. Walk. He threads through noise with the same architecture he used on straw. The city's random weather cannot tilt a man who carries his climate. Back inside, I hand him the bokken on sharpened wood, honest as rain. No cuts, I warn. Just carry. Let the blade rest in the sheath of your breath. He places it at his hip. Immediately his chest wants to rise, old theater waking. He notices, bows inside, and lowers attention to the Hara. The sword ceases to be an emblem and becomes a responsibility. He walks. The wood is quiet, the room is quiet. Even his thoughts learn to speak in low tones that do not disturb the tea. Why this obsession with walking? He asks. Because you walk more than you win, I answer. Because mastery is custody, not spectacle. Because if you can carry attention across one room, you can carry it across one life. He stands in the center, eyes soft, mouth unarmed. The boy who came here measuring days by alert now counts with breath. A small smile moves at the belly, not the lips. It feels like a lantern someone finally remembered to light. I take the bokken away. We sit. What did you learn? He considers, not performing thought, but actually thinking. That silence is a place I can stand, he says. That fear can walk beside me without steering. That alignment makes weight easier. I nod. Tomorrow we visit something colder than confusion. He understands. The river, Misogi. He writes his 3 lines before leaving, ink neat as footprints in new snow. At the door he touches the rubber band on his phone. Hala first, and smiles the way men smile at a tool that keeps its promise. Hold the line, I say. I am, he answers, and for the first time it sounds like an identity instead of an intention. Before the sun admits its mistakes, the river tells the truth. We walk there in the hour when the city is unsure of itself, street lamps arguing with a sky that intends to win. The air smells of iron and pine, frost quiets the reeds, the water wears a dull gray blade of light. This is not punishment, I say, untying my sandals. It is conversation. Cold does not hate you. It asks if you are here. He nods, jaw set with the old habit of bracing. I touch the point below his navel. Not the jaw, I remind him. The keel. We stand at the bank and bow to what will not bow back. Misogi is a cleansing older than our names. Done foolishly, it breeds bravado. Done correctly, it breeds belonging. Listen, I say. 3 guards at the gate. Breath, posture, attention. Keep them, and the cold becomes a teacher. Lose them, and you return to superstition. He inhales 4 counts, down, not up. Exhales 6 counts, like a winter horse. Spine tall, ribs unpuffed, shoulders hung on hooks of bone rather than strings of pride. We step in together until the river takes our shins, then knees, then thighs. The first bite is argument, the second is clarity. He gasps, old reflex, but catches the fall with a long exhale that pours from the Hara. Good, I say. Make the exhale your longest word. Science sits on the bank and nods. Old exposure, if brief and sincere, sparks norepinephrine like flint. Focus rises, inflammation kneels. Brown adipose switches on, small fires under the skin. The vagus learns the shape of steady under surprise. You become a man the weather can respect. The water lifts to his waist. He looks like someone holding a letter he knows will change his life if he reads it slowly enough. Fear is not an enemy, I tell him. It is a bell. You decide if it signals prayer or panic. He lets the next breath drop deep. Eyes soften. The face that once begged the world to be kinder becomes the face of a man who can meet a world that will not be. 1 minute, I say softly. Time is a river. We borrow a cup. the cold drills for weakness. Ankles, wrists, the places men forget when they build themselves only from mirrors. He feels the shivers beginning, small birds behind the ribs. Let them fly, I say. Shiver is your firewood. He turns his palms up just above the surface, letting the cold write a thin scripture across the lifelines. He does not negotiate. He listens. A silence opens, with a kind that is not absence, but presence, dense enough to lean on. You are not here to prove, I whisper. You are here to remember. The minute completes itself, like a vow signed in clean ink. We step out, water sheeting from skin like rain deciding to fall the other direction. On the bank, I spread a towel and hand him wool. No sprinting, I caution. Warmth returns by alignment before sweat. Breath low, movement slow, kata exact. We move. Slow cuts without blades. Each draw begins in the belly, arcs through the ribs, and ends at the fingertips with nothing wasted. The code leaves as if dismissed by a courteous host. Color returns to his face not in a rush, but in an order. What did you meet? I ask. Myself, he says, the part that can wait. I nod. Misubi is not about pain, it is about proof of center. The river runs indifferent and perfect. Geese pass overhead, like black commas arranging a sentence. The sky has been trying to say, since stone learned to be water. He dresses. Steam lifts from our clothes. A small incense to the morning. I hand him a pencil. He writes his 3 lines on a damp card that will wrinkle and keep the truth anyway. Back at the dojo, the river still speaks through the seams of his clothes. Cold is a teacher with long echo. I set a small brazier glowing in the corner. Not for drama, for order. Heat should come from within first. The room may assist. We sit, seiza. I say nothing for a span that belongs to no clock. Silence is not empty. It is furnished with everything you are running from. Close your eyes, I say at last. Re-enter the water from memory, but this time remain dry. He lowers attention until his belly receives it like a homecoming guest. The body cannot tell rich imagination from small reality. The same circuitry lights. His breathing follows the remember river, 4 down, 6 out. Ripples moving through intercostals like fish through reeds. Technique, I say softly, is a way to be loyal to your future self. He nods without moving. I guide his focus in a circle the size of a coin just below the navel. This is the Hara, I whisper, your gravitational center. In biomechanics, it aligns levers and load. In medicine, it massages viscera. In spirit, it gives your courage a chair. He smiles, not with lips, but with a subtle yes that lives inside a man who has finally found a place to set his weight. We rise and work a slow kata. No blades, no flourish. I tap the points that tend to defect under pressure. The root of the tongue, the notch above the sternum, the hinge of the jaw. The hip crease that tightens when the story of hurry returns. He stabilizes each with breath. This is both Zen and neurophysiology. Attention to interoception increases prefrontal governance. The limbic fires no longer command the village. Again I say, but with a laugh. He looks puzzled. I demonstrate a single soft exhale that resembles the first syllable of a laugh. Ha! From the belly, not the throat. The diaphragm drops, the pelvic floor answers. The sound is not comedy, it's architecture. He tries it, and the body opens like a gate that forgot it was locked. Good, I say. This is how you disarm panic in small rooms. We move to a wall. I have him press his back lightly into it, heels a palm's breadth away. Feel how the wall gives you a spine you can borrow, I say. Now breathe until you do not need it. He fills the belly like a well, then the ribs like bellows, then the upper chest only at the end. On the exhale, everything returns to the Hara. 3 cycles, and he steps off with the wall still standing inside him. I dim the room by 1 shade and roll a cold stone from the river across his forearms and neck. Brief, precise, unflinching. Misogi need not always be a river, I remind him. He can be a stone, a morning floor, a harder truth spoken kindly. He nods. The nod has the weight of wood. Now write, I say. He opens the journal. The lines come spare and exact. What I feared, the first bite of cold, and what it said about me. Where I drifted, wanting it to be over instead of being in it. Where I held the line, letting the exhale decide, not the fear. He pauses, then adds the 4th for this week. Flavor of the moment. Metal at first, then sweet as breath warmed along. I take the book and weigh it in my hand as a smith weighs ore. Good. Your words are not ornament. They are tools. Before we finish, I make the room ordinary. Lights up, kettle on. The city audible. Remember, I say, the river is not special. It is honest. Bring its honesty to the desk, the kitchen, the subway. Cold trains clarity. Clarity trains kindness. Kindness holds the line. He bows from the Hara. The floor receives him as if meeting an old friend who finally came home through weather. The test does not arrive with drums. It arrives at 10:04 a.m. under fluorescent honesty, with coffee breath and the slide deck missing 1 figure that matters. A manager asks for an update. Eyes pivot. The room is a shallow sea of attention, with sharp reefs just under the surface. I have taught him to descend before speaking. I can't stand beside him now, but the Hara can. He feels the old surge, the adrenaline that once impersonated courage and then abandoned him at the microphone. The chest wants to lift, the jaw wants to recruit teeth for battle, the ego wants to win the moment even if it loses the day. He bows inside, down. 4 counts into the belly, weight gathering like a quiet storm that means to water fields, not flood towns. 6 counts out, lengthened exhale, the vaguest humming like a low drum no one else can hear. Heart rate variability opens, attention widens, the amygdala looks for orders and finds a captain instead of a crowd. The manager repeats a question, a shade sharper. He does not correct the tone, he corrects his posture. Hips heavy in the chair, crown tall, tongue placed softly on the palate so words exit clean. He does not rush for the sword of explanation, he reaches for the bowl of truth. I miss the dependency, he says, voice even as river stone. It's on me. Here is the fix and the timeline. Here is what I'm already doing today. To hold the line. There is a small silence, the kind that tests whether the room wants performance or presence. Someone asks a follow-up, testing for flinch. He doesn't fight the fear, he folds it into breath. He does not apologize to be liked, he takes responsibility to be exact. The room, surprised by a man who does not shake, quietly reorders itself around the weight of his sincerity. This is not magic, this is mechanics. Honesty lowers cognitive load, working memory clears. With the prefrontal cortex online, his answers land where they should, not where pride wants them. He writes numbers on the whiteboard with an engineer's hand and a monk's pace. The solution does not peacock, it walks. Someone tries a sideways jab, an old colleague who knows the boy he used to be. So we're behind because you? He meets the eyes, not with heat but with architecture. Breath low. Because I, he says, owning the sentence like a craftsman signing oak. Then, and we'll be on track by Thursday 3 p.m. I'll post the revision before lunch. Control effort, release weather, hold the Hara. Later, at his desk, the aftershock arrives. Body asking if he can return to the old contract of panic and scroll. He stands, turns his phone so the small rubber band faces him. Hara first. He bows inside again. 1 minute of tandem breathing. Shoulders translate down their rails. Dopamine is invited by precision. He schedules the next 2 hours in a grid a samurai could respect. 30 minutes to fix the dependency, 20 to write the brief, 10 to walk outside and practice the line among strangers. He steps into the hallway and walks the invisible chalk while the world clatters. A man with a box of donuts offers him sugar he does not need. He smiles, declines, names the true hunger, certainty, and feeds it with presence. At 1:40 p.m., he ships the correction. He writes 3 spare lines in his pocket notebook. Feared, the room's judgment. Drifted, toward defending image. Held the line by returning to belly before answering. I find him at dusk in the dojo doorway, the day still flickering on his coat. We bow. He does not talk first. He breathes first. How did the gate treat you? I ask. It tried to make me run, he says. I walked. We enter. The tatami remembers his weight. Tonight the test will have a different shape, speed, wood, and a partner who respects no story but contact. Doors close. Silence arranges the room like furniture you trust in the dark. I choose a partner who moves like weather. No malice, no mercy, just fronts that arrive as they please. He bows to me, then to the boy, then to the room that will soon keep our oaths. Rules, I say. Touch, don't harm. When you lose center, freeze. When you panic, breathe. When you win, breathe more. Balcony in hand, the boy's chest wants to lift. The theater ghost trying to raise the curtain. He notices, lowers attention, and the curtain stays down. Good. Begin. The partner advances, unhurried, as if carrying an afternoon across the floor. Tap, high guard. Tap, low, faint. Tap. Wrist check that would rattle a man who lives from elbows and jaw. The boy exhales from the hara. The blade stays a line, not a question mark. He moves the feet first, not the shoulders, and the room approves without applause. Fear does not vanish, it changes jobs. It stops shouting predictions and starts sharpening perception. Interoception rises. He feels the micro-tremor in the right calf, the heat at the base of the skull, the temptation to speed where precision should live. Each sensation becomes a bell. He bows to each bell and does not leave the temple. Slow, then fast, I murmur. He waits for the partner to overcommit, then steps off the line with a pivot grown from the hip crease, not the knee. The cut he could throw stays sheathed. He practices the highest art, restraint that is not fear but form. The partner grins. Warriors recognize the moment steel could sing and doesn't. We pause. I take the boy's wrist, locating the river there. Feel it? I ask. Your pulse is a drummer. Too fast, the parade scatters. Too slow, the army sleeps. Breathe until the drummer keeps time with the room. He breathes, the drummer listens. Vagal tone climbs its invisible ladder. The metronome of his heart sits in the pocket with the rhythm of his feet. We resume. The partner now tests the hinge, quick, crisp, strikes, to pull him into flinch. Once the boy bites, teeth clacking softly on habit. He freezes, good, and names the thief aloud, hurry. The naming steals its mask, he resets from the belly, jaw soft, eyes soft, blade honest. Science peeks through the shoji and approves. He is shortening latency between arousal and recovery, training the prefrontal to take the wheel before animal panic writes the next line. Neuroplasticity is not glamorous. It is repetition dressed in sincerity. Pressure rises. The blades meet with a bark that leaves the air tasting of resin. The boy counters not by adding force, but by improving geometry. He drops the center half an inch. The world obeys. The partner's strike skims off, redirected by a vector rather than a vow. The room whispers. Alignment beats effort. Between exchanges he returns to silence, like a diver returning to air. 2 breaths, 1 check-in, weight low. Spine tall, gaze soft. He steps in again, neither hunted nor hunting, simply present. The ego, bored by the lack of story, leaves to find an argument elsewhere. I throw in my voice. 1 sharp clap, 1 sudden, "Hey!" to impersonate life's bad timing. His amygdala flares, the hara answers. Recovery. A breath and a half, again. Recovery. 1 breath, again. Recovery. Half. Good, I say. The world will still knock, you will shorten the fall. In the final exchange, the partner opens a window, the smallest mistake that invites vanity. The boy sees it and lets it pass. He chooses position over applause, exits with a clean angle, and resheathes in stillness. The partner bows deeper than custom requires. Respect is not a medal, it is a weight. We sit, the boy wipes the bokken as if it were memory. He writes, breathing between the lines, feared, being hit and seen, drifted, toward showing I could, held the line by returning to belly and letting the cut remain a thought. I take the paper, feel its honest weight. You did not win, I say. You held, that is the gate. He nods, and the nod lives below his jaw. The man who once sought clean victories now seeks a cleaner center. Fear has been demoted from a general issuing orders to a career bearing messages he can read without leaving his post. Tomorrow, I say, you will teach what you've learned. Nothing cements the keel like carrying another across the deck. He inhales through the nose, 4 counts that belong to no witness. The exhale is long, unshowy, sovereign. Morning arrives wearing linen, plain, clean, without commentary. I unlock the dojo and make it smaller on purpose. A clear room tells the spirit the truth. There is nowhere to hide and no need. He enters without hurry. The old flicker of, am I doing this right? No longer lies in his shoulders. It has been evicted to the shoes. He bows from the hara, and the bow bows the day. Today you will teach, I say. He glances toward the rack of blades. I shake my head and touch the kettle. Lantern before steel. A younger student waits by the door. A narrow river of nerves. He is the boy's old shadow. Breath high, eyes fast, attention frayed into threads. I watch my student watch himself 10 months ago, and I see the right kind of ache in his face, the compassionate kind. He draws a chalk line across tatami. This is not a test, he tells the novice, it's a mirror. He places a shallow bowl of water in the young hands, heel to toe, breath low. The novice wobbles at the 3rd step, triggered by the oldest predator, hurry. My student doesn't scold, he names. That was thought before foot, he says gently. Give the foot the honor of arriving first. He shows the correction, not with speeches but with posture. Hips heavy like a stone, agreeing with the earth. Crown tall as if a quiet hand keeps him honest. Exhale longer than pride. The bowl becomes a small lake. I step back. This is what an ancient system intends, not dependence, but lineage. He introduces makuso without incense. 3 minutes, eyes soft, spine amassed, then leads the novice through tanden breathing. 4 down to the hara, 6 out, as if fogging winter glass. He does not sell calm, he demonstrates custody. The room learns. Science loves this, he adds, voice low. Vagus nerve, heart rate variability, interoception, but names won't save you if you won't breathe. He smiles, and the smile lives under the ribs, tea becomes the first kata. He sets the implements as if the bowls could remember disrespect. Pause before pour, down, out, up. Intensity without center, he says, is fire in dry grass. The novice hears it because the room is proof, steam rising, not smoke. He wraps a rubber band around the boy's phone, tucking a small card under it, Har first. This is your tether, he says. Every reach is a bow, or a flinch. Choose the bow. Misoji enters not as legend, but as practice. He places a river stone, still cold from a basin, into the novice's palms, and rolls it across forearms and neck, brief and clear. Cold is a teacher, he says. Meet it on your terms, 1 minute each dawn, water on face, feet on stone, breath in belly. You are telling the animal who is captain. He writes the 4 lines on the board in neat strokes. What I feared, where I drifted, where I held the line, flavor of the moment. Concision builds sincerity, he says. Sincerity builds strength. Strength builds quiet. They walk the line again. I clap once, loud enough to wake old alarms. The novice flinches. My student does not. Recovery. 1 breath. He teaches recovery like a musician teaching time, never shaming the missed beat, always returning to the downstroke. You can shorten the fall, he tells the boy. That is mastery. Only now do I hand him the bokken. He does not draw it, and I do not need to remind him. Carry, he instructs, placing the wood at his hip. Let the blade rest in the sheath of your breath. They cross the room not as performers but as custodians. The metronome ticks, then obeys their breathing. The city outside tries its usual tricks. The room does not bend. He turns to the novice. What you control, he says, is effort, breath, posture, attention. What you release is weather, outcomes, opinions, the hour's appetite for noise. Hold the line anyway. The novice bows, water-eyed than he intended. A keel is being installed where a sail once begged for wind. I pour tea for 3. We drink as if heat were a sacrament and silence the priest. By noon the room is warm with breath and small victories. Instruction is a bridge. Now he must become the river beneath it. I set a single tatami at the center, an island of straw in a sea of wood. Stand here, I say to my student, and remember the boy who first arrived. He steps onto the mat, and the past steps with him. Shallow breath, flickering purpose, hands that searched for tasks to hold because they did not know how to hold themselves. Bow to him, I instruct. He bows, not in apology but in recognition. You kept going, he whispers to the younger ghost. I'll keep going, for us both. I draw the shinken. Rio steel, just once and only long enough for light to kiss the edge. The room stills. There are days, I say, when the world will insist on spectacle. Your answer is this. I rotate the blade until it vanishes into the scabbard without sound. Makoto, sincerity, is the quietest cut. We see Seiza. I teach the last piece of the ancient system, Nenriki, the power of directed attention. Place your mind, I say, like a warm stone in the lower belly. Hold it there no matter who speaks. If you lose it, return without ceremony. This is how saints prayed, and surgeons learned to keep their hands. He practices. Eyes soft, breath low. The novice watches the lesson, travel from teacher to student, to himself without leaving the room. Science stands behind me and nods. What you are building, I say, is straight calm, not state calm. Changes that linger after practice. The insula reads the body more clearly. The prefrontal writes the next move with less noise. The baroreflex keeps time like a drummer who never drinks. He smiles at the image. The novice smiles because he sees it happening, not because he can explain it. We rise for the final kata, a walk that circles the room, touches the kettle, the door, the rack, and returns to center. Ordinary things, arranged like prayer beads. Purpose is not recovered by fireworks, I say. It is returned to you by faithful circus. He begins, down, out, up, placing attention as if planting trees that others will rest under. At the kettle he pours without hurry and does not confuse heat with haste. At the door he opens and closes without performance, feeling the hinge teach him about levers and limits. At the rack he touches the bokken and leaves it asleep. Each moment is exact, none are dramatic. This is how a life is carried. Back at the center he faces the novice. "What will you practice tonight?" he asks. The boy answers in a whisper that carries Mokuso 3 minutes. Tanden breath 4 and 6. Tea like a kata, cold water on my face, the 4 lines in my book, walk the line in the kitchen. Hara first when I reach for the phone. My student nods approval, then removes the rubber band from his own phone and hands it to the boy. The gesture lands with the weight of inheritance. A lantern changes hands. We close with gratitude. 3 breaths, 3 bows. To the teachers, to the body, to the path that waited without punishment. The room smells of straw and steam and something like cedar, an honest perfume of labor. At the threshold I place 2 fingers below his navel as I did on his first day, but this time not to show him where to stand, only to remind him where he already is. Purpose will fade again, I say. All fires do. Your task is not to chase sparks. Your task is to keep a hearth. He holds my gaze without reaching for it. I know the way back, he says. Say it. Hold the line. Return to my hara. We step outside. The city is itself, impatient, glittering, full of small cliffs. He walks into it like a man who owns his weather. His stride does not ask permission. His breath conducts traffic that cannot hear the music. I watch until he is part of the street and the street is part of him, and then I close the door and bow to the emptiness that remains. A friendly emptiness, like a dojo after practice, like a mind after prayer. That night he rides by lamplight, feared, losing this quiet, drifted toward planning more than living, held the line by returning to the belly whenever the hour asked for spectacle. He shuts the book with the gentle finality of a sheathed blade. Outside, wind presses its face to the glass and leaves no mark. Core moral: when purpose fades, hold the line, return to your hara, and presence will restore the path to mastery.